can wait if we want for Doug to call in, or just let him join us once we start. All right, so let's call the meeting to order. And I guess you're playing secretary today. You want to do the roll call?
Jeff Romine,
Here.
Doug Snook,
Here.
Doug Hubble, Paul Miller,
Here.
Neil Carlson.
Present. All right, so minutes from February 24, he's got it attached here for you. There's a lot there. I can't remember, were we given this to review? Is it I respond with red lines? You did already. Okay, that's what I was trying to remember. Move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion on? All in favor? Aye. Yeah. So, yes, the other agenda item is the next agenda item would be policy for excavation, right?
Yep.
Okay, take it away, Mr. Richard.
Last meeting, there was some concern about the policy as it relates to whether or not it can be changed. So I did add a section down near the bottom. It says before any changes can be made to the policy, a suggested change shall be submitted to the plumbing board for review and comment. So that's an attempt to address that concern that we won't be making any changes without discussing it with the plumbing board. The other change I made was in number 6, where it says the contractor should provide verification that the workers performing the work are licensed. This isn't, I changed that license to certified because I don't want to start or open up another license for the contract. So it's just, what's that?
Oh, I found it, yes. Never mind.
Yeah. So yeah, I changed that license to certified. This copy doesn't reflect that. It's been changed. So those are the only changes that I made to the policy.
What that was on line item.
Number 6. It says
So,
License and change it to certified.
certified. Yeah.
okay, so discussion.
I guess mine still falls on number 6. Were we gonna change? Say that half of the hours for the sewer was a
Yeah.
little much, and we were gonna add that they can also be like something for ditch safety or something. Remember we discussed it?
Yeah, we said.
Yeah,
I didn't know if that would help open the door for helping them, you know.
Yeah, this just, I think that the other, since we are requesting half of them be sewer line installation, the other half would be,
Yeah, no, I just
I think so.
didn't know if you wanted to make sure that was in there.
I think, yeah, I don't think we need to, I don't want to go into saying one half can be this and the other half can be.
No, that's fair. However we think, I just want to make sure that was.
Yeah.
So is this open discussion at this point right now?
Please, yes.
Okay, so when Dan Beal was on here on the last meeting, he made a great statement and a really good point as far as If this, excuse me,
You're free to go.
You're good, Pat.
I'm breaking up pretty good.
No, you're great. Don't change anything.
Okay. So, I mean, he made a point and he made it really simple, and it kind of cut through a lot of the confusion with all of this, and it really provided some clarity to me that if we're allowing another person to do work that we've done a ton of work to get a license for, and basically a less qualified person to do our work, that's not right. And so I don't agree with the policy, because if a licensed plumber is supposed to do this, then a licensed plumber is supposed to do it. And it's pretty black and white. I also, for the record, agree with Bruce Pfeiffer's summation in his email dated Tuesday, March 16th at 3:44 in regards to, what he had said. And I mean, unfortunately, that's all I can say. I mean, that sums everything up for me. I mean, Bruce made some really, really good points. And what we're trying to pass here is not going to fix the bigger issue, of which is the planning review process, where they should have caught the issues before they ever happened and caused Walmart a huge inconvenience, which created that whole issue at Walmart. That could have been eliminated during the code and the planning review session of the plans. So I don't believe this legislation or this ordinance or this, whatever we want to call it, is going to fix what the original problem was in the first place.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, gentlemen.
Anybody else? Comments?
Well, I agree with what Pat just said. I agree with what Bruce said. I agree with what Dan has said. And I know the Canton Contract Association is opposed to the policy. Knowing that, knowing the problem we had with the city council on changing, and this is the most palatable change that I think we can make that gets the city council out of it, puts it on Richards or his predecessors back to manage it, and also with the agreement that it comes to us to discuss. I'm not in favor of it, but I'd probably move to accept it.
Have to choose.
Yeah, right, but
There has to be a path chosen.
there has to be a path to us, and then this is the least hurtful.
And you would really have to say.
Well, I think Richard could establish a policy if he wants us to endorse this policy, is what he's asking us to do.
Right.
Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. You guys, you don't have to, you don't have to accept
You
what
can
I've been
probably make a
directed
policy.
to bring up.
Right.
So now I'm just bringing it up.
It's a courtesy to us.
Yes,
I look at it as courtesy to
Right.
us that you're bringing it to us.
There's also the way I could.
and it affects the plumbing community and the excavators. So I thought that you guys should have some input on the policy. As far as what was brought up, is that it's on the city to have made Walmart aware of this requirement. It's pretty, City of Topeka's regulations require, if you have plumbing work done, you need to hire a plumber.
Right.
That's in our regulations. You have heating and ventilation work done, you need to hire a mechanical contractor. All that's spelled out in our regulations. All that information is provided to any contractor that comes in our community. If you're doing building work, before we'll issue a building permit to you, you need to have a licensed contractor. So any of the trades where that work is being done, they are aware that they need to hire specific trades.
Right.
So the statement that it was missed is not accurate. All contractors, all builders that come into our community are made aware that they have to hire licensed contractors to do that.
I think you misunderstood what I was saying, Richard. What I was saying that was missed, and I assume that you're speaking in reference to what I said earlier.
Yeah, you went, yes.
Okay, so just to clarify, what I meant by the word missed was that the city of Topeka has a review process of any plans for any new construction prior to approving a permit for that construction. And during that review process, when they do check the plans, they are supposed to review it and review everything about that plan, including pipe sizes, etc. And when they pass that plan and they give it back to the builder or developer or whoever it is, that person has the false sense of security that everything is approved, it's ready to go, we can just go ahead and install it as to the plan. The issue is that the city of Topeka puts a convenient disclaimer on it that basically says that if we miss anything, it's not our fault, you still have to do it to code. That is in fact what the issue at Walmart was. It was an issue of the review. I don't know if it had missed or it even checked the pipe sizing, and the pipe sizing was incorrect. And then at the last minute, the Walmart was installing everything to the plan that was approved by the city, and then was told to stop work by the plumbing inspector because they were installing the incorrect pipe that was approved during the plan review. So I don't know if it was missed or what the deal was, but that was the problem.
Well, no,
And this,
that wasn't the issue. Walmart came to us and that was a issue, but the issue that was causing Walmart, because we approved that material to be put in the ground. Even after we approved the material to be put in the ground, they wanted to use their laborers to install the plumbing pipe. And we told them, no, you have to hire a licensed plumber. So they came to us and they were complaining about spending money to have a plumbing contractor sit out there while the pipe was being laid by their men. That was their complaint. Their complaint initially was the material, but we approved that. And then their complaint was spending the money for the plumbing contract.
so what you're saying, for the record, is that Walmart did not complain that they had to make a plumbing pipe switch at the last minute that they could not acquire in a reasonable amount of time to continue the project. That's what you're saying? That they did not complain about that?
I'm saying that, yes, I'm saying, yes, there was an issue with the plumbing pipe, the type of pipe they were using. Yes, there was an issue. I'm saying that issue was resolved. And
Because you allowed them to install the pipe that was spec'd out on the plan in the first place.
yes, what happened was that material, we had just adopted the new 2015 plumbing code. And it just so happens that that material they were using the week before was not permitted, but we adopted the plumbing code the week after, and then it was permitted because it was in the plumbing code. So that was
But but previously during the review of the plans, when they were initially submitted, that was not brought up,
no,
that it didn't meet code.
no, it wasn't.
Okay, so then that created a situation for Walmart that they weren't expecting.
Correct,
And then the secondary situation that you're speaking of, that Walmart was upset that their employees couldn't lay the pipe. Well, they're not plumbers.
correct.
So I don't know what the argument is there.
Then that's what the policy, that's what's addressing. They complained that they were spending money for a plumbing contractor to sit out there because our regulations required a plumber to do that work. So they were having to pay a plumber to do the work, to sit out, they said, sit out there while their guys was doing the work. And they said they were spending money for nothing. So then that's when it got brought to our attention.
Why were they? Sorry, apologize for interrupting.
Go ahead.
Why were they allowed to do plumbing under a plumber's supervision? Isn't that farming out a license?
Excuse me?
Why were they not made to use a plumbing company to install the pipe by the governing authority?
Okay, so let me make sure I'm clear. I may be characterizing that incorrectly, but they hired P1 to do their plumbing work. And they had people that could do that work. And they were upset that they were paying P1 to do the plumbing work when they had people that could do the work. However, those people were not plumbers. So they were upset that they had to pay somebody else to do the work. And
Well-
they had guys that could do the work. And that's the basis of this policy that we're working on. Not the materials, that wasn't the main issue, because that was resolved, but this was not resolved.
I guess I'm unsure then and unclear on why, say if a homeowner said the same thing, well, I have somebody that can do the work, but they're not licensed, but they can do the work and they can lay the pipe. Can you just approve them to do the work? I guess I don't understand how that's any different. And then my question is, are they qualified plumbers? Are they licensed plumbers? Because in our code book, that's how it's written, is that a licensed plumber lays the pipe,
Correct,
installs the pipe
Correct.
according to local codes. So
Correct.
whether they liked it or not, unfortunately, that's tough.
you're correct, Pat. You're correct.
So let me attempt to summarize what this conversation's been about. Pat, you mentioned that you understood they had a pipe sizing issue and a pipe material issue and a labor issue. I think what I've understood is that there was not a pipe sizing issue. It was only a piping material issue. When the city of Topeka, not the plumbing board, when the city of Topeka determined that that piping material was acceptable based on whatever criteria was, then they were given permission to use that material. Then during inspections, the city discovered that they didn't have licensed plumbers doing the installation and wrote them up for that. Then they hired P1 to install the piping as allowed by code to have a helper with an excavator. Is that a fair summary?
Correct, yes.
Okay, that's the way I thought I'd heard it transpire in the past. So.
Hey,
then,
Jeff.
Circling back to your comment. The Topeka Municipal Code requires that a licensed engineer stamp the drawings that it is designed for all of the codes that exist, right? When it goes to the city, I personally have not assumed or expected the city to review my set of stamp drawings from a plumbing, a power, electrical, lighting, all of those criteria to make sure that I have complied with all the engineering requirements, the code requirements, the guidelines, the standards, and everything else. I've always looked at it as though they were doing a review of the drawings to see if in general they were compliant. Because once I started to build a building and inspect the building, and if the inspector found something in an above ceiling inspection or an end wall inspection or an end ground inspection or a final inspection or anything else, I never felt that if it didn't comply to the code, that I had any leg to stand on. Well, you looked at it and didn't tell me. Because there are so many details in that set of documents that I don't expect them to check every one of my calculations. So I have always had the opinion that they are not quality control. They are just looking for big items that are public safety, and that they still have jurisdiction during installation and even after installation to say that this is not installed per code and it affects the public's health, safety, and welfare. So I tried to summarize the conversation you and Richard were having, and hopefully that's at least my perspective on it and clear. So here we are today. We've adopted the plumbing code since I've been involved in this since '96, I think it was, every 6 years, and it goes to the city with amendments. In this case, it is my understanding that the governing body has told Richard they want a policy. So if this ever happens again, they have something to review and to react on. Richard is out of courtesy, understanding that the whole plumbing community has asked, why are we even talking about this? Why are we even addressing this? Out of courtesy to the plumbing community, he has attempted to develop a policy that you all as plumbers can look at and get some input that he can have in his pocket should the city council, I should say the governing body, ever ask him to do something different than the plumbing code. Is that a fair summary?
Yes.
Okay. So I agree with all of you. I wish that I would have spent the last 6 months talking about this. But I think this is from a perspective that there's nothing else I can do about it. I think this is about the best step forward. At least we had some input on what was written. Are you following me? So I spoke a lot.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't agree with it. I don't agree that the city should be allowed to pass a policy that contradicts their own adoption of the code. I don't believe that the city should be able to create a policy that takes work away from from tradespeople and gives it to lesser qualified trades when it's very clearly spelled out in the code book that was adopted by the city. I don't agree.
But, well, okay, I mean, but you said one thing about the homeowner finding somebody that could do it. The city has much to the inspector's dislike, where the homeowner can take his permit out, the homeowner can install the plumbing, the wiring, as long as he does it by code,
And he lives. in
Right.
that.
and he lives in the house.
Right. I understand that. I was meaning more of a rental situation, but go ahead. Sorry.
Giving lessons. But the city does have a homeowner permit.
So Neil, I think I misstated that. It was more, say, a homeowner bought a flip house. Okay, and it was not his primary residence,
Then
but he said, but he said, well, I have a guy that can do this. Well, that's great that you have a guy that can do this, but he's not a licensed plumber, and this requires a licensed plumber. And so I don't think the situation's any different that we're asking, just it's a different scale. Commercial versus residential. I think the situation's still the same. I think we're making allowances, and
We're not
I don't
catching
believe,
people that are flipping houses.
I think we're going down a rabbit hole on this.
Yeah. Can I say something?
Sure, Dan.
So we bid on that Walmart job and we didn't get the project because we were a little bit high. And now I know why we didn't get it, because our labor costs are a little higher because all of our plumbers are licensed. We're licensed. And the reason we didn't get it is because there was an unlicensed contractor on that site installing the plumbing, correct?
We have to assume that's part of it, yes.
Yeah. So allowing an unlicensed contractor to do work that you're requiring me to be a licensed contractor and hire licensed plumbers to do puts me at a competitive disadvantage cost-wise. And I don't agree with the policy. It's discriminatory to me as a licensed plumbing contractor, hiring qualified licensed plumbers. Correct, Paul?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think Paul would agree with this policy either.
I completely, I have zero disagreement with your comment, Dan. Pat makes all very extremely valid comments. Yeah, we have to kind of stand behind the simple fact that, yeah, our code, the city plainly states that we've adopted this, and this is what we're going to guide by.
I know my solution to this will become an unlicensed contractor and go after this work. Is that what you want me to do? Richard, is that what you want me to do?
No, what I would say is, I've been trying to stress, this policy is written, it's not a loose policy. If you look at this policy, 99.9% of the plumbing jobs in Topeka will still be done by licensed plumbers. As I stated earlier in this discussion, and we've been going through this, last year, if this policy was in place, there's only one plumbing job that would have been able to be done by somebody that was not a licensed plumber. However, they do have to demonstrate that they know how to do the work. They do have to demonstrate that they've done the work before in other communities. And they do have, it has to be of a magnitude, the size of the job does matter. So it had to be a bigger job. So it's not like this is allowing all the plumbing work to go to just anyone. And I understand, I was trying to get you the copy of this, and I don't have your email. So I know you haven't seen it, but if you look at this policy, it's so, it has a lot of requirements in it that just wouldn't let
Is it really that tough for you to give me that policy and sit down and review it with me?
I thought no, it's not. I can review it with you tomorrow.
So I noticed in the policy, I did get it maybe 30 minutes before the meeting. There was a section in it about continuing education. Does the Plumbing Board of Appeals now take care of reviewing that continuing education for sewer line installation?
No, that's going to be done by me.
I disagree with that. Are you the person that is going to look at the 3 projects outside of the Shawnee County area that this contractor has performed and satisfactorily completed?
Yes.
I disagree with that. So those were about the only things that I could see, and those were the only, I didn't have a lot of time to review the plumbing policy, but I disagree with it. I think it puts me at a competitive disadvantage, and it incentivizes non-licensed contractors to take my work. And Paul, I see you're shaking your head because we employ a couple hundred of men that you train, and you do a great job training them, and you should be proud of that. And I don't think that you should allow unlicensed tradesmen to come do their work after you've trained them.
Thanks, Dan. So I kind of want to circle back. I'm not plumbing, and I'm here for, I think there's 2 reasons the plumbing board's here. One of them is here to listen to appeals to violations that's been written by the city, and the other is to assist the city in reviewing the plumbing code and asking the city council to adopt it. So I want to circle back to a couple things Pat and Dan both said. I don't believe there's been anyone state from the plumbing perspective that they agree what the city council has asked you to do is to allow work done by somebody other than licensed plumber. We all agree that, right?
Right.
And I guess I'd kind of like to reiterate versus what happened with the amendment to the plumbing code a year ago, 9 months ago, whenever it was, that anybody could do water and waste.
Yeah.
This has come full
They
circle.
got scope in the site utility, which is they're really a big company.
This has come a long ways into getting rid of that text and refining it to something that's a little bit more acceptable. But even if we all tell Richard repeatedly that we don't like it, we don't approve of it, which we all agree that it should be a plumber installing, right?
Correct.
Yes, correct.
I guess we have stated that repeatedly, and Richard has asked, based on his superiors telling him to write a policy, he's asked for our input.
I just want to say this. When they were out there, and they didn't have a licensed plumber doing that work, it was me that told them, you have to stop and you have to get a licensed plumber out.
And they did.
So I just want you guys to know that.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
You know,
I respect
I didn't go out and say, yeah, keep working.
Yeah.
So I'm a regular. And that's what I do. And so I totally agree with what you're saying. However, I think that there, as we're discussing, and as I think most people can agree, there's room for some leniency with the regulation, as long as there's some guidelines when we do it. And I think what we crafted here is very limited in scope, and it's very limited in who can do the work. This policy is just for the sewer line. I'm glad you guys brought it up. It's just for the sewer line. It's not for the fire line. It's not for the gas line, it's just for the sewer line. So that's the only thing this is for. So it is limited in scope, and there are some heavy requirements on it. And I am not, I mean, that's my job, to regulate and make sure that people are following the ordinances. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm not supportive of having people follow the regulations, because that's what I do.
Richard? I don't think one thing you did say about, I think there's some leniency at allowing some of this. I don't think there's any leniency, and I think it's been very clearly stated by Dan, Paul, myself, that we don't agree with it 100%. And I understand that you said this is only for very, very specific. This has been written very specifically. It still has been specifically written. And it takes away from work from plumbers. That's it. So it's whether it's 1% or it's 10%, it doesn't matter. But for the record, I do want to disagree with something you said earlier, and something that has been stated over and over, that there has only been one job like this. Because to my understanding, building permits include the plumber's work on big commercial construction. Is that correct or incorrect?
Yeah, you're correct.
Say again?
Yes, you're correct.
So when you say you only had one situation happen like this before to minimize, I mean, that minimizes it, by you saying that, it's minimizing the situation to make it sound like, well, this only happened one time before, so this is not going to be a big deal. It's not going to be a routine thing. But I think there are more incidences that haven't been looked up that fall under the building permits of others that this work has happened.
I'm not following you. When I said, I'm saying that there was only one project last year that would meet this criteria. It was just one project. So I understand you saying one is too many. I understand that, I accept that, but I'm not following you after that. There's no other projects. This has to be a sewer main extension, and those projects, like I said, it was just the one last year. It's not something that happens every day.
I look at what they did. They could have put an easement and called it a sewer main extension. Got approval from the city to extend the sewer main, and it been installed by the same people as a sewer main. Instead of calling it a private sewer main. It's basically a sewer main extension on private property, which they could have gotten the easement granted, gone through engineering, and had a sewer main extension.
Right, you're correct.
And that would have met the code, there wouldn't be the argument.
I think that's a good point you're making, because a sewer main extension is done in the right of way.
Right,
They don't use licensed plumbers.
right,
They use excavators.
right.
So that's all we were doing, was just,
Well, and on projects that I'm working on, apartments or townhouses, the developer brings the sewer line in the easement, and then he extends the sewer line on a lot of to within, and it's in the right of way, but it's within 20 foot of the building. So I do put in 20 foot of sewer, but I've had some that were short as 5 foot of sewer. Because that's the way it was laid out. And that riser or that stuff was put in by an excavator, not a plumber. Right, they do have to meet the code, they were using sewer drain. Main extensions are something we live with all the time.
Hey, Jeff, this is Joey from Samco. Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, Joey, please.
I have a couple of points that I wanted to make just based off Dan and Pat, what they said, and to clear something up for Richard. I understand what Richard's saying with, he only seen one permit applied for the project. Is that correct? One project applied for a permit?
No, what I said was there was only one project that would meet this policy.
Well, I think there's more than one, but could you clarify the Walmart deal for me? Was that stormwater or a sewer extension?
It's just sewer.
It wasn't stormwater.
No, it's just sewer.
So the plumbing code for stormwater in the city of Topeka is what?
Excuse me?
Same as the sewer.
Same as sewer, right?
Yes.
So we see more instances of stormwater issues with excavators than sewers typically. But I can tell you 2 projects last year that were city of Topeka projects that my company bid on, and we lost the excavators that required a plumbing inspection. Now, that goes back to Dan's point. I was at a competitive disadvantage from the beginning because I got an excavator that pays this guy X amount of dollars versus what I have to pay a licensed plumber to do the work. And in both instances, we were beat by excavators, Samco, McElroy's, and if I remember right, P1 bid to projects. And the 3 licensed plumbing contractors were all within 1% of each other on the price. And if I remember correctly, both of them, we were beat by 33% by an excavator. The math's not hard for us to estimate every day where our disadvantage was. And I think my only point to this is that I misunderstood your one example that you had. I think there's several of these that happen throughout the years. They don't apply for a permit because they don't think they need one. And one of the excavators I talked to said, I asked him, how do you get away with this? I have to have an inspection on the plumbing work I did. I just had the city inspect it. That's what I do, was his response. The city water department. So I think there's a ton of examples out there that Pat, Dan, all the other contractors are worried about that get performed daily without an inspection and without a licensed plumber. And we have to have that licensed plumber and that licensed plumber pay and all the bills we pay to do it per the adopted code. And we're at a competitive disadvantage every day with it. That's where most of our concern as plumbing contractors was coming from, because it just opens the door to other ventures. And I think Pat was making the example. The homeowner says, I got a guy that can do it. Can you just sign off on it? We run into that every day. We usually bite our tongue and just move down the road. But I mean, I have 2 solid instances with the city that they hired an excavator through their bid process to run water lines, fire lines, and sewer lines. They're just not applying for the permit like we would do as a licensed plumbing contractor. That's where our concern lies. And Dan and Pat can both jump in there and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that's exactly what the main concern we have is. And again, I see more headache with stormwater lines than I do sewer lines. That's kind of been an argument for the last 10 years that I can remember. The excavator lays the storm piping in the ground. They want us to come out and help them with it. So they have a licensed plumber on it. We're allowed to have an apprentice in the ditch with this. There's always an argument about it. And there's a licensed plumber there with certain excavators.
This is Dan at McElroy's. Joey, you're 100% right. I remember bidding that job and it wasn't a fair bid process. We were at a competitive disadvantage. I agree with you.
So I'm going to jump in with Pat and Dan and say, I completely disagree with everything we're trying to move forward with. We're trying to keep Dan, Pat, Steve Brown at PCI, the Lowry, we're trying to keep plumbers employed in the city of Topeka. And we're bidding against non-licensed people. We're held to a different standard. In the last 2 months, I've had licensed plumbers that are known by the city ask for their card repeatedly, not just once, more than once. What are we asking an excavator when we stop and he's in a ditch?
Repeat that.
Are the inspectors, are local inspectors stopping and asking the excavator in the ditch laying pipe for his
Well,
license?
you know, that you're bringing up some subjects, and I really can't address them, but when you say you guys bid on a project for the city,
Yes.
it wasn't development services, it probably was utilities or engineering, and it probably was in a right of way. And in a right of way, the excavators can do that work. You don't
No,
have
they
to
were
have-
both specifically for city divisions on city property.
Well, that's what I'm saying, when you say city property, the streets are city property. Like, city hasn't built any buildings. And
One of them
that's
was
what-
one of them was the North Topeka wastewater treatment plant. No right of way, nothing. It was on their property.
And once again, I had to look at it. But all I can say is that engineering and utilities generally use excavators to do their work. And they're permitted to do that by their regulations.
So then I guess I agree with Dan. I need to be a non-licensed contractor so I can do business different.
Hey, Richard, where are the excavation contractors listed on the city's website? I've looked and I found plumbing contractors, mechanical contractors, electrical contractors, but there's no excavation contractors listed. Can you show me where they're listed?
If they are listed, they're going to be under specialty. There's a category.
They're not listed. You said if they are listed,
Yeah, I said
no,
if
they're
they are-
not listed.
Okay.
Can you show me the list
Yeah, I can get you a list of the excavators, sure.
and the requirements to become one?
Yes,
What sort of continuing education do they take?
none. They're not
No
required.
wonder they're a lot less expensive than we are.
Yep,
No wonder they beat us on bids all the time.
So the city doesn't require them to obtain any licensing at all? No code adopted?
well,
for
yeah, they
them?
have to update their license, but they're not required to get continuing education like plumbers. You're correct.
The city doesn't list them on their website either, Joey. They must be a hidden contracting classification.
No, we had some problems. We don't list fire sprinklers. We license a lot of people. And we
You do
require-
list fire sprinklers. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, there's a lot of licenses that we issue that aren't on the website. That we had to make a decision whether or not it would be something that somebody would be looking for. So we can put.
Did you run out of room on your website? You've got
Exactly.
page after page. You've got about 10 different license types listed. I've never heard of a website running out of room to list license holders.
Exactly, that's what, even doing that, we were trying to make sure that we listed the ones that were more pertinent to people, is what we tried to do.
I noticed Schmidt Line Excavating, they're listed as a demolition contractor. That was kind of interesting.
They may have a demolition license.
Yeah, but
may
they're
have
not
a demolition-
an excavation contractor because you don't list the excavation contractors on your website.
I'll correct that tomorrow.
I'll look and I'll be glad to see that tomorrow.
Okay,
So I guess I have another 2 cents. Since we've always opened up for good can discussion. Um, You know, and obviously I think that I can, I'll speak for myself, you know, obviously as a trade person myself, I came up as an apprentice in this industry locally in town. And spent most of my, actually, I'm gonna say, high portion of my career with Apple, which I completely respected and appreciate what Dan Field said on my behalf in regard to, you know, yes, I was a foreman there. I'm also a lead instructor coordinator for our unit here in Topeka. So I have a lot of ways of fight in regard to being against obviously what's happening. And that's what I just want to make sure for the record, yeah, I don't support this. It's tough. And I guess when I come back to my 2 cents, I guess I just have to understand, Richard, and I understand what your position is on this in regard to you were asked to do something. We highly, I think, I can speak for the rest of the board, we say, you know, we appreciate the fact that we were brought in, you know, for all the input that we can offer for this. Because I learned a lot through this process of understanding that we didn't have to be addressed with this. So I understand that, correct?
Yep.
You know, so we could have completely been skipped over. So I do appreciate the fact that you respected us, the farming community, et cetera, enough to come to us with this for all the input. I'm in, out of respect for my trade, the other people involved in the trade, the contractor I spent most of my career with, you know, Pat, Joey, everybody has amazing points to this. I guess I just have to circle back around and just understand why we can't just get back in line with, why does the city council, why can't we not just get in line with what we've adopted? You know, where we say that, and I understand you're asked to form it, but why do we have to form something that circumvents what we're supposed to be standing hard to? And maybe it's not a simple answer. I mean, I just don't understand why we have to do something like this when I feel like the fast answer would be to say, I understand what you guys are saying, I understand you want me to do a policy, but this is what we've adopted, this is what we're supposed to do. This is what we as a city took on, and we required licensed people, licensed owners, licensed contractors. This is what we all agreed upon. This is what we said we were going to do, and now we're double standarding it, and we're circumventing what we said we were going to do, and we're creating something. Why is it not that simple to say?
it was my understanding that we're trying to do this to encourage development into people. My understanding that the council was made aware that this is something that goes on all over the United States, except here in Topeka. So why can't Topeka do something to help encourage development? So that's why we're looking at this. We're looking at this in case another developer comes to our community and they run into the same situation, we can make it more palatable for them to develop. That's one of the reasons that
I mean, in the same regard to promoting growth and creating an opportunity for that contractor, could they not still create the same opportunity for themselves to go get licensed the same way that Dan that's just where I hold to
Yeah.
with what we're at with the code.
Yeah.
We are circumventing what we
And
adopted.
that's, I think that's, I'm here just because of that.
Yeah.
I need to hear what you guys think. I think that's the only way we can address this issue is we need to discuss it. And you need to talk to people that don't agree with what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Because hopefully you can come out with a better product when you get people that don't agree all the time. But they can talk about it and try and address some issues. And I think that's what you guys are saying. You're saying, I don't agree with this. However, let's look at it.
I look at it very similar to where I've taken my career in regards to pipe treatment. There's never been any, and Neil and Doug can attest to this, there's not a lot of loopholes in regard to things we want to do. So if I want to go test backflips and be in line with the city, I personally, like, it wasn't offered to me in my apprenticeship. I personally went back, took that class, took the certification, because if I wanted to do that in this city, I had to get that license if I wanted to do that work. And I now teach it. It's the same thing for an example would be welding. If you want to weld and get on certain projects, you've got to carry a certification. It's not as good as me saying I can run a bead. Like, hey, I'm good, putting on a high pressure steam line. I can do it. Are you certified? No, but I can do it. If I want to do that, I've got to feel good about it. Contractor hires me, got to feel good about it. There are all lines for, if you want to do that work, go get the certification for it. And I don't think that from a standpoint of these individuals that want to do this work, and if you want to get inside of the, let's just say a jurisdiction that does require licensed people to do a certain craft, it doesn't seem unfair to say, why couldn't you have somebody from the shop period, a master model?
Hey, gentlemen, this is Jeff Myers with the laborers. I represent several contractors, union contractors that have been doing this work for years up to the building, putting in storm sewer, putting in the sewer. Now, in this thing that I read that you guys had, that you sent me, you're saying that these guys can still keep doing that work when it's new, but then it needs to be repaired. Is this saying that you guys want a union plumber standing on the bank supervising the guys that have been doing this stuff for 30 years and having no problem with the city codes or anything? Or are you guys wanting to get in the ditch and actually do the work, is my question.
Who are you addressing that question to?
My name is Jeff Myers with the laborers. Who am I? I'm addressing it to everybody. I jumped in here a little late, but we have contracts that have done, just for instance, Smith Line Excavating. We have run thousands, if not hundreds of thousands miles of storm sewer and everything in Topeka that has been inspected, that has to be tested just like everybody else's. But the way I look at it is plumbers are wanting to stand on the bank because no plumbing contractors want to do this work, actually. I've seen it not being bid.
I think you may be, I don't know if you understand, this is for work that's all on private property. This is not for work that's done in the road and.
Yeah, but it's going to lead to wanting to go to the road.
No,
Is what I see.
no.
No.
I've always respected the excavator doing the mains, the all of that. That's their job. That's their.
Okay. All right. Well, then that leaves me,
Until they get the private
because
property.
I've had several of my contractors worried about it leading into something else.
No, I think that this policy is only directed to private property. And I think most of your workers are probably working with the excavators and doing most of the work in the right of way. This policy doesn't address that. So your workers should be fine.
Okay. Well, that's my main concern because I've been addressed by my contractors about it.
Well,
So,
you can have them give me a call. I'm here at the city to speak and I'll talk to them about it.
Yeah.
But I
And
will.
you've been more than great with me, man. I'm not saying you guys have been working with me and helping me figure out this too, you know.
Okay.
So I appreciate it.
So to answer a couple questions, just so I understand, and in reverse, Jeff Myers just brought up a point about developmental services. Do you have any development services? Sorry. Do you have any jurisdiction in the right of way?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to leave that there. Richard, you mentioned a minute ago that it's because contractors rolled in here and said that we are able to do this all over the country. Why can't we do it here? Did anyone find any jurisdiction that allowed a non-licensed contractor to install piping on private property? Other than maybe there was a rumor about rural water district number 1 or water district number 1 in Johnson County, right?
Right.
But besides that, we haven't found anybody, any other jurisdiction that allows it of substance. I'm saying more than 20, 30,000 people.
No, I did not.
Okay, I have found one either. So when a city council person or a governing body member tells you that this developer says that this contractor says he can do it anywhere else in the country, tell them that that's not true. Yeah. Because I haven't run across it. Now, Joey and Dan, if you find that a contractor is doing something that doesn't follow the city building regulations, I encourage you to report them. As a city, as a citizen, if it's electrical, plumbing, fire protection, gas, whatever it is, because if that happens, we all know that people do things that don't pertain to code without licenses. But if you find that, please let somebody know. And this does not address that, correct? Because this is only for 8-inch and larger sanitary sewer pipes that have at least one manhole on private property.
Right.
And this is all this is for, is that right?
Correct.
So yeah, I feel your pain when people are doing something, Joey, and you know that you're just wasting your time bidding it because they're going to break the rules. I understand your pain there, but I don't know that this policy he's driving addresses that, or has it been asked to address that? And then when it comes to like water, piping physically in a water treatment plant, I don't know if it's development services. Do you guys have jurisdiction of that water plant, wastewater plant?
No.
Or
Is that utility?
That's utilities.
so
Jeff, it wasn't in the plan. It was in the ground. That's why an excavator bid it.
oh, but within the plant itself, it was yard piping, right?
It was in the property and it was just piping between tanks that go out to the river.
So
Hey, let me interrupt you a little bit there because I also hold a master plumbing license in Johnson County. They have stricter rules than we do in Shawnee County.
awesome. I'm glad to hear that because that's always been my experience too. Johnson County's been the biggest difficult
Yes,
jurisdiction to work with.
absolutely difficult. And hey, if I can interrupt just one more time there, I think Mr. Myers that jumped on there, I want to make sure I heard this right because it might put an exclamation mark on my point to Richard that he said for 30 years they've been running utilities up to buildings. I think that's what I heard him say, not just in the roadways. He said for 30 years my guys have been running utility piping, water lines, sewer lines, storm lines up to buildings. And that would just go back to Pat's point and my point earlier and Dan's point that, I mean, it's getting done without a permit being pulled on it. And he said it's even inspected by the city. And in my understanding from them, when I reached out to an excavator was, it's inspected by the city guys that come out that tap the sewer, they make sure we did it right, or the city guys that tap the water and make sure we did it right. That's my inspection. Well, we're held to completely different inspection standards then.
Well, when he say it was inspected by the city, it wasn't inspected by the city development services inspector.
Right, absolutely
Utilities
right.
has inspectors and engineering has inspectors.
Absolutely.
So when you say it was inspected by the city, gotta be a little bit more definitive. Was it the?
Yeah, and I feel the same way. I mean, I asked the same question. Well, what authority do they have to inspect to a building?
If it's on private property,
Exactly.
if it's on private property, there is some legal responsibility they have as a purveyor. But when it comes to the plumbing code, it's still development services on private property.
But to Mr. Grogan's point, where does it start and where does it stop?
At the property line.
So I guess I need to be corrected because I heard Mr. Myers say for 30 years, we've been running it up to a building. What does he mean by that? To the 5 foot outside the building?
You know, maybe I'm speaking out of turn and maybe I am wrong that maybe it hasn't been run to the building. I could be wrong on
We've
that.
had a plumber present.
That's what I heard from him.
So right now, it's my understanding that the city requires a licensed plumber be present when it crosses the property line and enters the building.
Yes.
Can the excavator dig the ditch and lay the pipe underneath the supervision of a licensed plumber?
Some plumbers do hire excavators.
Gray area.
And I've had an excavator help me lay pipe. He wasn't an apprentice, I was down the ditch and I needed help.
As long as it complies with plumbing code and the TMC with respect to being a helper.
Can I say something real quick?
Please.
So just want to clarify about this running the sewers up to buildings and other jurisdictions that allow this by excavation contractors. And Lawrence, Kansas City, Olathe, Wichita, Lincoln, Nebraska, Springfield, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, and Missouri, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa. Each of these cities require a plumbing permit and a plumbing contractor's license and inspections by the authority having jurisdiction.
Agree.
So all those cities are doing it the way we're doing it.
Correct,
We agree.
correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify because there's been some misinformation previously saying that other jurisdictions are doing what, the city council initially tried to pass with allowing them to run sewers or private sewers up to within so many feet of the building, which is not correct.
We agree.
We
Okay, thank you.
To the best of our knowledge, yeah. We've all done some homework and couldn't find anybody that allowed it.
It sounds like it was just brought up to the city, oh, we do this, and so the city council, I should say, didn't do their due diligence and check it out before they passed this amendment.
Felt like
They just felt like, oh, that's the way it's done, let's just do it, and with us, we're,
So we are being asked to do something that none of those other cities are doing.
that's correct.
correct.
We're being asked to give up what we do for a living to give to somebody else. And to me, that that devalues what my father did. It devalues what my grandfather did. And it devalues what I do. You're saying that my license isn't important because we can just give this work to somebody else that they can do it. I don't agree with it still.
I agree with you that. That's the same way I feel.
I agree with that. Well,
And it's like I said, I think the city council was just said, oh, this is, everybody does it, so they didn't check it out. And now we're at this big mess. We just need to go back the way it used to be and just, you know,
Well, I
So-
agree with you, but at the same time, don't you hire helpers that aren't licensed?
Yeah, I think we all do.
Jeff, and I would agree with if it goes back to the way it was, if it's not going to affect the guys doing the stuff out in the easement, you know, that they have been doing. You know, maybe I misunderstood what I was told about going up to the building. I'll let you guys know, I've been in this 6 years as the business agent. I did not do any storm sewers or any pipe laying in my career. I was a concrete man. But I don't want the men that I have doing the work they're doing losing their work. And I understand what Patrick's saying about his father and his grandfather. I agree totally in that. But I don't want my men that are doing their work to lose the work that they're doing neither.
And Mr. Myers, I honestly think there's a misunderstanding because what has been proposed is allowing excavators to come from the easement and the right of way up into the private homeowner's yard, not for the plumbers to go out into the easement and the right of way to start doing sewer mains and all that jazz. That has nothing to do with what's being proposed.
And
They're just,
I think I'm figuring that out right now.
yeah, so we're not coming after your work or anything like that. That's not what this is about. We're just trying to protect our own.
I completely understand.
It's actually just the opposite of what he's saying. They're coming after our work with this proposed change.
Correct.
So you can see his passion in what he's saying about they don't want to lose their utility work in the easement, in the roadways. We have the same passion. We don't want to lose what is rightfully ours in commercial properties, in residential properties on that's private.
And all of this initially started from a proposal from an owner of an excavation company. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
So, hey, Richard, this is Joey again.
Yeah,
My question, for one, just like Paul said, I want to commend you on taking all the butt rippings and nasty emails and everything that's came along about this, because it's an awful position to be in. My question for you is, I heard you say a few times in the last few meetings that this task was assigned to you by your superiors or a directive from above.
correct.
When you take all this in, and if you made the decision to say, we don't want to do this, I don't want to amend any new policies, I don't want to amend any new, we already have a code in place that says what we're supposed to do, that we adopted by the city of Topeka. So when you tell the powers to be that we don't want to make any changes, what's the next step?
I don't know. If I get a thumbs down on this, if the plumbing board says this is not a policy, this is something that we don't want to do, I'll take that back to my boss and we'll sit down with the city manager and tell him, I'll show him the policy that we wrote. And he'll have to make a decision on which way to go. But I will say this, it's not my place to tell them not to do this. So.
Understood, but I think Mr. Pfeiffer put it pretty clearly a couple times in an email. The city has already adopted the answer with the code. End of story, I guess, in my mind. It's already been adopted. We have the rules in place already.
I do need to qualify something. We as a planning board are not writing policy to say that we cannot do that. We do not have the jurisdiction to do that. The city of Topeka has written a policy and asked the plumbing board and the plumbing community for their comments. And in unison, the plumbing community and the plumbing board has said, we don't see a reason for this. And we don't like where this is going. The city has still adopted the plumbing code and the amendments that we have adopted, and they have not changed. The governing body, the city, and Jeff Myers and the excavators, I have not heard a plumber say that they want to cross the right of way and start installing city utilities. They can do that if they want. They can go get on the list for city engineering and start bidding the work if they wanted to, but I haven't heard they want to do that yet. And I agree that we don't want anyone installing utilities on private property that a homeowner or a business owner or a commercial owner is going to own and be responsible for unless it complies with a model building. And that stands for water services, fire services, gas services, every other thing that we have to have a license for to install on private property. So I've also been told that if a developer comes to town and makes a deal with the city council that they're going to build something and not follow the adopted codes, the city council has a right to approve that as the governing body, correct? They could take that liability on themselves, correct?
Not a blanket,
Okay.
but there are certain aspects, like this is an
So
aspect.
that's kind of like what we're doing.
Right, this is an aspect of that. Someone can't come in and tell the city council they want to build a building and meet all the 1985 standards, and not meet any of the ones that we have today.
Because the city council doesn't have the authority to vote on that and approve it. I thought they did. I thought they were our governing body. They could make decisions like that.
It would have to, they'd have to do a lot of stuff to do that.
Okay.
They'd have to make some changes and adopt some ordinances.
So how can they break the city Topeka municipal code by doing something that is not part of the municipal code, which this would be, right?
This is a policy, and actually, as you understand it, this is something that I can do. The plumbing code has in there with the jurisdiction, having authority in, well, this is why I take that back, because this is a licensing issue.
Yeah.
So this is a municipal code. It's not a plumbing code. I take that back. This is a licensing issue. And this does fall under the jurisdiction of the council governing body. So if they're wanting a policy to, this is really sound like a legal question.
Yeah.
Kind of gets me off guard.
So I bring,
I think that's going to be a legal question.
yeah, I bring Pat, Joey, and Dan's comments back full circle, and I think it would be best if you approached those who have asked you to write the policy is the plumbing community doesn't approve of changing the model building code with respect to licensing.
And it's not the, like I said, it's not the plumbing code. It's the
The municipal code. However, I do appreciate you letting this group understand your position between a rock and a hard place. And I think that what you've developed here, if you as the authority have the option when the next big job comes in, there's a 20-inch sewer main that has multiple manholes, that you can make that decision. At least you got something here that we all looked at, kind of understand where you're coming from. And you wouldn't just do that because somebody asked you. It's because the city council, the governing body, is demanding that you do it. Okay. That's the way I've understood it. I thank you for clarifying.
And I also want to point out that this was brought up because city council was informed that this was a problem that needed to be fixed. And so that's why they told me to write the ordinance.
And can you inform the city council that it is not a problem that needs to be fixed? Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what they understand. It was a problem and it needed to be fixed. And they wanted to know why it wasn't fixed. And so they directed the city manager to get it fixed, and he enlisted my assistance to get it fixed. So that's why we're here. And I wanted to make sure that we didn't do the same thing twice.
Understood.
And that's not listening to the plumbing trade, plumbing contractors. So that's a big reason why I'm here. I want to do that.
So as far as owners, licensed tradesmen, citizens, if they have concern, they need to talk to their city council representative about this is not a problem that exists here or anywhere else. Okay.
Like I said, they were misinformed. The way I see it.
So, Mr. Romine,
Yeah.
Really jumped in.
your statement there, well understood about the board is making a recommendation and a recommendation only. But could you correct me if I'm wrong? The board made a recommendation before they passed a resolution with an adoption and ignored the board's recommendation?
They added something to the recommendation.
So.
But the board's recommendation was to not allow this from day one, right?
No,
Well,
let's back up. The history is this.
supposed to be tabled.
We reviewed the 2018 Uniform Plumbing Code and made amendments to it.
Yes.
It went to the city. We as a plumbing board and a couple other people in the community tailored the amendments by changing this section to that section, mostly, addition changes within the 12 of 2000.
Normal adoption stuff.
You didn't even know this question existed, okay? We sent the 2018 plumbing code amendments, 50? No, well, whatever year it is, sorry. We sent that to city legal. The legal department wrote our amendments to the plumbing code in legal format. They then presented that to the city council for approval. The city council went for the first hearing, approved it, went for the second public hearing, and there was amendment made by one of the city council members to change verbiage in the water mains and the sewer mains. And the city council approved without talking to anyone else but who was at that meeting. Then, I can't remember who sent out the email. It's probably Bruce, right? If I remember. Bruce sent out the message to the community. Do you know what happened last night? And then that's where we are. Several of us went to the city council meeting in September and voiced our concern of how this happened and that it shouldn't have happened. And then it escalated and it was removed from the TMC in October-ish, somewhere in there. So no one ever asked us as a board about our opinion on the text that was made, or the change that was made.
But Has this issue been brought to the board before by any other outside party, excavators, plumbers, anybody? It was my understanding that excavators have been somewhat lobbying to get it changed, and that's kind of how this came about.
So,
You know, like a year
Yes,
ago.
that is correct. It was brought up, I think, in January 2020's board minutes. If you read the minutes that it was brought up for consideration in that meeting, that's when it was tabled by the plumbing board.
yeah, they did come, a couple excavators came to the board and asked about installing pipe. And as Pat mentioned, there was no decision made at this table. And by that time, we'd already submitted our amendments to the city back in July
August.
19, something like that. It was a
Yeah.
long time ago.
And-
So
And Joey, I'm sorry, Tom, go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
my last question was, when the plumbing board was presented this issue the first time, all of you guys had time to kind of review it, think about it, and was there an opinion formed at that time?
No,
Actually, we tabled it and then COVID hit,
Okay,
then we never had another meeting about it until now, basically.
until it showed up in the city regulations.
And Joey, one of the main reasons it was tabled is because of when that was presented to us, it was actually worded to the effect of, for the gentleman speaking there on that behalf, that where we want this to work because the local contractors do not want it. And those of us sitting here as licensed trade people didn't believe that that was accurate. And the main reason it was tabled at that time was like, well, it's definitely kind of a no from a front end standpoint, but we definitely would want to talk to the contractors, that being yourself, Pat, Dan Field, anybody's like, let's start digging into this and figuring out where this come from. And then, yes, like Neil said, COVID hit, and next thing you know, in the fast roundabout way, it shows up again. It just kind of went around all the corners. That's kind of what I remember it.
Yeah, it just didn't end around and took it to the board.
Yes.
Or took it to the council.
It was also brought up that other municipalities were doing this,
Right.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. There was a lot of
which,
information in their original proposal.
and I've read the minutes. I was not present at the board, but you guys requested more information on some of these things
Yeah.
at that time.
And we never received anything, and then next thing we knew, it was the city council had
And
it.
it was here. And it was our-
That's correct.
And our charge was to go to the, because we were told that what they were proposing was for commercial industrial property. It was not residential. And they were proposing utilities
It was-
on
it
private
was
property.
utility.
And they said that the contractors who did the big commercial jobs didn't want to do that. And they were told by different contractors that the laborers could go ahead and have that. And I personally called McElroy's, IP, E1, all the big commercial contractors I could think of, to get their opinion, and they all said, no, we do want that. And we never said that.
Correct.
And I reported that.
well, what got my attention with it was there was a letter or an email floated around that said my company approved of the amendment, and nobody had ever talked to me. I mean, I don't live in the city limits. I live just outside of them up north. So I called Mr. Emerson myself and asked who from my company approved that statement to be put out. Because I got phone calls about it, wanting to know why the hell I was agreeing with it. So that's where I found out about it, that I was in agreement with the amendment, and I hadn't even talked about it one time. So I talked to Mr. Emerson about it personally and asked for a retraction and never got one. But I guess what it came down to is what I hear from you, to put it as simple as I can, is the city council took it as, Mom, all my buddies are doing it, so let's do it too. And that's what we did. And I just want to be on record, you know, as being a stakeholder in a commercial industrial plumbing company at Topeka. I don't agree with what they're trying to do here. I'm totally against it. And I appreciate everybody in the room's time for listening to our complaints and everything you guys are doing. And I understand all you can do is make a recommendation, and I hope you'll recommend what we all agree on, is that we don't agree with it. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joey.
I appreciate it. So yeah, if, as Pat mentioned, I'm looking at the January 15th, 2020 meeting notes with Mr. Schmidtline, Lauren Kate, and Brian Gator appeared and asked about this. And if you look at those meeting notes, there's several questions that the plumbing board asked about commercial versus residential and what utilities they're talking about and what is yard piping and versus mains and things and qualified installers. So if you look at that, the meeting notes from January 15 and then the subsequent one, February 19, I guess it is, I think you'll find that the plumbing board the whole time said, we just don't know enough. And if there are other jurisdictions that allow it, and if the city wants to go forward, let's at least start there with their regulations. Why reinvent the wheel? And then the wheel fell off, so. All right, further conversation. Thoughts? Because we do have one more item on the
Well, so are you guys making an opinion on this policy?
I think that we can vote to make an opinion either that we support it or not.
Right.
I guess we can. Is that within our?
I guess it's not a formal, because it's not a policy. You're not granting a variance.
Our opinion would weigh
Right.
something for regard to the
Yeah.
city council.
Yeah.
Then yes, I would say I want to
Okay.
get our opinions on it.
That the city should not develop a policy that doesn't conform with the Topeka Municipal Code.
That would be fair to say.
Yes.
Okay, so if somebody just needs to make a motion and second it and go through the process.
I'll make the motion that the planning board does not agree with a policy that is conflict with.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Did you guys virtually hear what he said?
I know he said he didn't agree to the policy as it was written.
No, what we said was that I made a motion that the plumbing board was
Against the policy.
opposed to adopting a policy that was in conflict with existing city ordinances and municipal code. Which means we don't like it.
In short,
That's what it said.
In short, Pat, we're not supporting it because it's going against the code that we've adopted, that we know as the city of Topeka, that licensed plumbers should be installing.
10-4.
Any further discussion? Was that an attempt to speak to somebody? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Doug, are you still there? On cell? Okay, doesn't look like so. That would be 4-0. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Last,
Thank you.
go ahead. The last item is Hills wastewater treatment plant and the,
That one
yeah,
document I gave you guys is that report.
does it say when he took this?
Yeah, didn't even.
Yeah, I tried to get into the Google connection and couldn't. make
That was crazy, wasn't
it.
That could be.
Where, Richard?
Guys, if I might speak for a minute.
Sure.
Hey, Kenny, yeah.
I've been in contact with Hills for the last 3 weeks and they've been giving me the runaround. I've talked to Sam with KBS 3 times. I can't give you exact dates, but then they gave me to a guy. His name was Bill somebody. And I've also talked to Tim Deeker and nobody can come up with an answer for me. And then today, Bill sent me that link, but it doesn't show me nothing. So that's all I've got from them.
Yeah, so Bill Mulligan sent this.
The head of maintenance, so to speak, of the plant.
Yeah, engineering manager
Engineering
says.
maintenance, yes.
So this says copy of drinking water testing, 3/2019. Or last year,
Oh,
2019, or 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Ooh,
This, yeah,
okay, never mind.
We need to tell them we need a current test.
Yeah, well, this would actually be a really good staple for.
So where they started?
To where they started.
yeah, then, yeah.
Because I believe we told them,
And Sam should also be pretty clear, I would think, on what they want, because in my opinion, you don't know this, but I was involved with that, before I left P1. And Sam personally called me and he knew about this and he was trying to just get some details on what, and I kind of had to re-explain it to him. And I said, well, it's pretty simple. It's like there was a timeline. Like really all you have to do is provide some documentation of whatever the local testing is they do to make sure the water is applicable for, what went off designated as potable, whatever, drinkable, whatever your terminology you want to use there, but we need something that shows, that we don't have some kind of cross connection that we're concerned with. But actually, I kind of actually love this.
If it was current.
It's current.
But I know, but if we have a current one, like I said, this will be a really good staple for saying.
And see, when I talked to Sam, he was pretty well come across to me that he didn't have any clue of what was going on. None at all.
When was that?
Last week,
That's not true then, because I bet when I talked to him, I would say it was every bit of 2 to 3 weeks ago.
who's Sam?
Sam's all along with KBS.
and then Tim Deeker was supposed to get back with me, and I talked to him Friday, and I haven't heard from him either.
According to what you reported to us earlier, they told you that they tested monthly.
This
Right.
should be easy to produce.
This should be
This
easy
is
to
easy.
produce if they test monthly.
And that's what they said, is they test monthly, but they can't produce me with nothing that shows it.
That's concerning.
That
And,
is
and
concerning.
that's concerning, that's what, and we gave them 2 years to get this project done, to get it, up to code. In compliance, and they haven't done anything, they haven't.
That scares me that that we're trying to wait out the 2 years and we're dragging our feet through the first year when we're not producing something that we should be able to produce, or we said is able to be produced on a monthly basis.
So let me reread February 20, 2020 meeting minutes, all right? After discussion, Jeff Romine moved that the situation may temporarily remain if a stamped letter bearing the stamp of a licensed professional engineer is submitted to the city of Topeka stating that the domestic water distribution system is totally separated and properly protected from the high hazard backflow prevention devices. In addition, the water quality of the process system must be tested on a monthly basis to ensure proper water quality is maintained. Hills will submit a letter to the city acknowledging that there is a violation, and the violation will be corrected for the city building regulations within 24 months from the date of this appeal. So it's been 13 months. We've gotten one test report that we don't know the date of. They haven't complied with what we asked. I'm guessing that Deeker did send in a stamped letter back last February, March, that said that
Do we
we have RPZs on separated.
Yeah, we got a letter, I got a letter from the engineer,
Awesome.
but I didn't get the letter from Eagles. So I was my understanding, that's supposed to. Two letters.
Yep.
Only got the one.
So what this is, we as the plumbing board can't do anything. You as development services can do what? You can say that you've not complied with the variance that was given you on January 20, fix it now, or we're shutting the water off. No, I know, but.
Yeah, what I could do is we could contact them, which I have, they've been wanting a temporary certificate of occupancy. Every time they come to me requesting a temporary certificate of occupancy, I tell them I need the additional letter. So I haven't issued, they don't
And
have,
the test reports.
I didn't say test report,
Yeah, no, I
I didn't know
understand.
test report was part of it, I just needed. What I needed was a letter from Hills committing to doing what was agreed to in the variance.
Right.
So I can contact them with that. I don't know if we're gonna take them to court or not. I don't have to cut off the water, so,
So
there's
basically,
no finding. I mean, yes, if we find them, we have to take them.
you've written them a violation.
No, we haven't.
You did, or else we wouldn't have had it to the plumbing board, right?
Well, there was a issue with, Kenny was doing an inspection. And they didn't comply with the inspection.
Right, he wrote a violation, we as the plumbing board gave him a variance. Right?
They just
Yeah.
requested the variance because they couldn't comply with the regulations.
It wasn't the violation.
You didn't send them no violation, did you, Kenny?
No, not that I can remember.
We didn't send them a violation.
Or
Well,
they
what
couldn't-
is-
They couldn't get occupancy, so.
Then why do we have appeal 2020001? It's an appeal.
It's an appeal of an inspection that they're not complying with the plumbing regulation. So they're appealing the regulation. They wanted relief from that regulation.
Well, isn't that a violation?
That should be a violation. though.
Well, we don't,
You don't issue violations.
it's not a violation.
Okay, all right, well, okay. Either here nor there, here we are. There's nothing that I can do, we can do, right, other than,
Let me look into it. I don't, I don't know how much.
Well, I feel like we spun our wheels.
Yeah, I
We
think
asked
we
them
got
to
over
do
it.
something,
Because-
and then now we can't do anything
Yeah,
about it.
because that was stuff they said, oh, it's in the process, it's in the works,
What
that, we're
what I
gonna
can do
repipe
is-
this within 2 years.
what I can do is, which is what I'm doing, I can hold back the certificate of occupancy. And they're gonna get that. And sometimes that's important to the organization, especially for insurance purposes.
But,
Oh, yeah.
They're still running, and it's still business as usual, so I don't think it's hurt them, right?
Right. I don't.
And they were supposed to provide you with the city test reports,
Right.
which they haven't.
Which I haven't done.
So I mean,
And there's
we,
probably, no, I'm sorry, I'm cutting off.
no,
There's probably not a lot we can do since we've set a 2 years
Right.
standpoint on that.
no, there is, because we asked for a monthly test and a letter from the owner that said they fixed it, and they haven't
They
complied.
haven't
with 2
complied,
Haven't
so
applied so
They haven't
far.
applied.
within 13 months, I think that's a,
I just got from you that I didn't know there was a lot we could do other than holding their occupancy.
that's all I can think of right now.
Okay.
Because if, once again, the only other thing we can do is we can take it to court. I can check with the city attorney, I can have the city attorney can write him a letter and make it out, shake them up, but
It's definitely helped that.
yeah,
Well, it should be a concern to
Yeah,
people that
it's,
are-
it
to
should.
the people
it
that
is a
are,
help.
people that are
it's a
there
health hazard.
drinking out of the main break room and
Yeah,
wherever. I mean, I thought that was why we were discussing it.
It was.
and
Yeah.
they're routing around it. And then, that, I don't know, I think this should be we don't follow through with this will be something that is, for things to come, will they just continue to not get behind with what rules are and create an issue for public safety?
And then you fall back to, even if it's not a big corporation like Hills, it's just a small, say, strip mall, something, they're not complying. But they say, well, we didn't make them do it, so why do I have to do it? It's,
We don't want to create a snowball.
yeah,
Okay,
I mean, the codes are there for a reason.
And we set guidelines. for a reason.
so do we as a plumbing board want to make a recommendation, a motion as a recommendation to the city? Or is that, I guess, what should he be doing since this is all
Well,
business?
I guess I'll send them a letter. Let them know they're not in compliance with the regulations.
Do you give them 30 days to provide something in regard to what our initials?
Most generally, if we send out a violation, it's 10 days. They have 10 days to comply.
And then I would say if they jump out of complying with this, we would probably meet again to make a motion on.
No, only if they bring a violation to us.
Yeah, but
They have to bring us a violation.
we would, if they don't comply with the.
Well, with that 10 days, then would we be
We
here?
send it to the prosecutor.
Okay, that's what I
We send it to the prosecution. To the prosecutor. It's a big municipal code.
There was a lot said in the last 2 hours.
There was.
All right, any other business?
Justin come with a court report.
Yeah.
Any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
Any further discussion on
Unless
that?
there's any discussion that you want to.
No, I appreciate you guys. I mean, I just want you guys to know this process helped me out a lot. It wasn't meant that you guys had to accept it, so don't think it. I think that's a bad decision that was made. It's the decision that was made. And it's clear that it's not a good policy.
We appreciate you. bringing-
Yes.
Well, I think I
Really
would,
do.
I think I would also say that if you got forced into a corner
To do
to
so.
take the policy,
You did everything.
You did everything you could.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, we have a motion on the table. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.